Hello. So I'm Steve Plimsoll. For those of you who haven't had a chance to meet yet, by the introduction, I look after WPP's data and technology sort of strategy. And in my spare time, I'm also the Chief Technology Officer for Mindshare Worldwide, which is the world's largest media agency. And we do pretty much 1 in every 6 adverts you see in any country in the world comes from us. And about $30 billion a year of booking media. Just a quick bit about the WP data lines. It's really interesting nowadays. If you talk to any of the senior executives at WPP, more and more we'll describe ourselves as a data and technology company, not a creative company, because of the way marketing is changing and evolving, how important data and technology is becoming in the industry. The data alliance is put together to effectively allow us to bring all of our organizations together. A fundamental failing that we have as an industry is the silos we create for ourselves. And what we looked at with the data alliance in WPP when we created it was to bring together all those businesses and deliver the sum of the whole to our clients and people we work with, whether that be WPP's business, third parties, or clients' technology and systems. So, into some more interesting stuff. Who's heard of Pavlov? Most people heard of Pavlov? Fantastic. Right. Pavlov taught a dog to come for food by ringing a bell. Do you think we could teach a consumer to ignore us by sending them messages that are not relevant to them? That's the start. Okay? So, basic marketing concept, really, really simple. The puppy gets it. Okay? So, changes in technology. Everyone probably saw this from Gartner last year. By 2017, CMOs will spend more money on technology than CIOs. That's terrifying. Okay? So, what is this? What is this huge change? First of all, we know Accenture, McKinsey, and all those guys are desperately after the CMOs and desperately after the marketing conversations. We also know the marketing organizations are suddenly going, hang on, how does this work in this big, new, different world? And it really is the data that's changing things, it's the technology that's changing things. Phil talked about the facial recognition technologies that have been up and running, the ways in which we can engage with consumers. We can now find you left-handed golfers who live in Berkshire, and we can target them with specific one-to-one messages and test and see how they respond in real time. Okay? The ability to communicate at a one-to-one level is with us and has been with us for several years now. Okay? Japanese train stations were running facial recognition based on age and gender 4 years ago. Okay? Outdoor posters, one-to-one messaging. So this technology is with us now. The evolution of marketing. We're all really, really good at targeting. It's what we do. We understand targeting. I work with some of the largest FMCGs companies in the world. 18 months before we do a campaign, we work out what the consumer thinks. We spend a huge amount of timing on what we're going to do in the marketing campaign. And 18 months later, we just carpet bomb everybody. That was our targeting strategy. As a media agency, it's fantastic because you just buy lots of media. Okay? Unfortunately, the world's changing. Think of marketing moving from archery to ping pong. Sometimes we're serving, sometimes the consumer's serving. Where's the ball going to go? How do we interact and how do we engage them in different ways? It's very, very different to think about what a single message is going to do and just broadcasting it to everyone in that group. Okay? This is always on, always changing. I'm going to apologize for the very testosterone-based deck. This is slide 1 of a couple. So, first one, Formula 1. In a Formula 1 team, if the front left tyre has slightly less pressure than the front right tyre, the car doesn't perform the same. So everyone in that team has to know exactly how everyone's working. You need to know how much oil's in the tyre, you need to know it's in the car, oil in the tyre wouldn't be good. We need to understand what's going on across that organization. Unfortunately, in marketing, we've moved from historically very product-centric organizations to channel-centric organizations. Okay? Some of us have moved a bit further forward into customer-centric, where we understand customer segments. But how often do our teams work and understand what everyone else is doing? A standard question I ask when I'm talking to CMOs is how many CMOs, again, how many people in this room have read a call script? Okay, not as many as probably should have done. Is a call script relevant to customer experience? Right, so we spend loads of time in the big poster, but nobody cares about the call script when the person phones into the call session. How do we understand, how do we join those things together? See, testosterone. Okay. Next one, how do we start integrating human intelligence and technology intelligence? We know people and computers are different. Okay? People are very good at seeing differences in things. Computers are very good at seeing trends. So we know the way we look at things is different. How do we bring those two things together? Okay? One of the things that really, really frustrates me in the marketing industry is the way we analyze data. Everyone here has to have seen Mad Men. Otherwise, you're in the wrong auditorium. Okay? So in Mad Men, once a month, I'd receive a fax which told me how many GRPs I got from my TV campaigns. So I come from CRM and to data, GRPs still confuse me. Someone sucks their stuffed finger and tells me how many people I'm seeing in an audience. So apologies for the fact I do come from a media agency, but it still doesn't quite make sense. Once a month, we'd look at the numbers, we'd see, we'd do a result. Why now, when we have hundreds of feeds with data coming in real time, do we still do monthly reporting? Okay. Who here has received a credit card fraud alert? Anybody had a phone call from a credit card fraud alert, bank issue, things like that? Right. How would you feel if you received the credit card fraud alert 6 weeks after it happened in a PowerPoint on slide 7? Welcome to marketing. Something really, really interesting happens, really useful, really need to know and do something about it, and we wait until a month and a half later, and it's buried inside a deck of really other interesting stuff. Great. Okay? How do we change the way we work as an industry? How do we use technology to change this? The banking industry can do it. The finance industry can do it. Why don't we? So how do we bring that information together? I would far rather spend all my time thinking about things I'd like to know about when they happen than spending all my time trying to find data and digging for information across lots of systems. So how do we change the way we do that? Do you have a single source of all truths? Again, we talked earlier about that Formula One team. That's of information on what's going on in social, what's going on in my direct marketing, what's happening with my competitor intelligence. You've got a mix of slow-moving and fast-moving data. Every one of them is on a different screen. A lot of it's locked in the Insight Director's drawer. You have to go and grovel once a week and go and get the update from them. How do we bring that data together? How do we create a single source of truth which gives you the useful information that you need to actually do your job? Okay. Quick question. Anybody here actually have their media spend plus their sort of website impressions and hits plus their actual retail sales data in the same place? One hand. Fantastic. We can talk later. We don't do it. We're really social. Here's what we're doing in social. Here's what's going on our website. How many damn products have we sold? Are we actually changing the game? How's the profitability? How do we bring those together? How do we see that in one place? So, moving on a bit more about consumers. How well do we know our consumers? We as an industry have evolved over the last number of years in the different ways we collect data on consumers to a point now where there's too much data now. Half of it is really, really interesting because it's probably more. 90% of it is great because it says we're 51% confident this person's female. Okay? So the wonderful conversation is all about statistics. So someone with their head in the freezer, feet in the oven is on average comfortable. Okay? So how do you work out that when we deal with sort of cookies and information based? How do we change the way we work? So here's a standard model. We move from unknown to known. The basic assumed data, limited information, market research. I'm going to ask 30 people in North America what 300 million people think of a TV ad and then decide where to spend my money. Okay? Big industry, lots of money being made by lots of people in that. Observed data. How do I track what people do where I can see them to understand more about it? On my website and other properties, different areas, so I understand a little bit more about them. Partially known. Someone might actually interact with me. I get an email address, I understand a bit more about them. Through this idea of sort of fully known or sort of network known, where I can recognize that person in real time. Okay? Holy grail of marketing communication, recognize your consumer as best as you can, wherever you can, at every touch point, enhance that data and personalize the message. So how do I understand who they are when they phone the call center, come to the website, walk into a travel agent, when I know every one of those locations? And how do I know them across their network and their other friends? But more importantly, I can get known relatively easy. I can spend the money and do it. But how's that consumer relationship? And the fifth one on here is engaged. Because it doesn't matter how well you know your consumer. If they're not actually engaged with you, it doesn't really matter. How do you create that value exchange? How do you create that relationship in the way you talk to people? We know as standard statistics, of 100% of your customers, probably 20% you make most of your profit off. You've probably got 50% that you break even on, and 30% will cost you money every time you try and talk to them. How do we understand which of those we want to talk to and engage and drive that relationship across our consumers? How do we use different information, the assumed data, observed, declared, and network, to pull together the sort of Rubik's Cube inside there? How do we start pulling that information to one place and then make it useful? So, we've all seen charts like this. Consumers will now choose how and where to interact with you based on what is most convenient to them at that point in time. Think about it. I'm on the train on the way into work, I'll probably be using my iPad or my phone. I'm in the office, more likely to use my computer. I'm sitting at home in the evenings, probably on TV. Depending on what's more comfortable, better for me to use at that point in time, I would change the channel I'm interacting on. How do we make sure those channels are joined up at the same time? More importantly, how can I gather information from them? How can I capture that insight from every one of those interactions and leverage that data? Everybody would have seen a diagram like this before. Standard customer lifetime value. Okay, look at acquisition strategies, growth strategies, and retention strategies. Okay, we get to the bottom of this concept of moments of truth, points of time where consumers change and do things. Okay? What's interesting with data and when you look at different channels is the information can tell us things about our customers. Okay? So in the customer's life cycle, there'll be lots of things. There'll be holidays, marriages, families, changes, births, change of jobs, all sorts of things will happen in a consumer's life cycle. We can reference signals, things they do in our different channels that can help us understand information. So we can pick up the signals from the different channels. Those signals can actually drive insights, and the insights will update relationship profiles, media preferences, demographics, interests. So how do we use those different points to drive it? And most importantly, while you're moving data to insights, unless we can act on them, they're useless. So how do we actually get to the point where we can drive conversations? So how do we understand? How do we look at the different things people are doing in the properties where we can track and change those to actually drive information, change structures in our warehouses, plug them into rules to create better conversations with those consumers? The other one which I think is really interesting, and I come from CRM industry. I've built big data and tech platforms from agencies and places like Axiom and others. Why on earth am I in a media agency? Why is half of my time focusing on a big media business? Well, partly because it's going to become the most attributable platform and channel in the world. If I look at what we've got, traditional marketing research, I might talk to hundreds of people. Owned research, coming onto my website, I might have a couple 100,000 people. Social monitoring, again, I can talk to millions, again, bits of information. Media, hundreds of millions. One of the FMCG clients we work with in the States, for just one of their brands, okay, one brand, one market, averages 20 million unique visitor interactions over media that we can track a day. All right? So imagine if I took a TVC, I put it into an ad unit, so I've got a bit of a TV ad, put it into an ad unit, and I put it online, tracked it up, and I watch 20 million unique people view that across all the IP addresses and locations in that market. And I can understand, based on how much of that video was viewed by married people, different income, different levels of schooling, political views, where they live, all that information. There's a huge insight pool out of this environment, what we can now do. And a lot of our clients have started realizing marketing and actually media can drive strategic intelligence into business. We've been talking with one of the chief marketing officers of one of the large IT sort of laptop computer manufacturers. They want to use marketing insight to drive what their next product is. Okay? It's a big change. It's not just about driving what creative or what color blue should it be next time. So how do we do some of that? We talk about this concept of sort of customer data integration 2.0. I feel sick when I say 2.0 because it's a really bad old term from everyone else. I really didn't like it when it came out with digital. But it is the next version of CDI. We've all done CDI. We all understand what it is. What if you could take CDI as a practice, which is a generic thing we do when we have someone's name or physical address or email address in an offline world, and apply it to everything? What if we could recognize a consumer on a banner ad as an anonymous ID? We can then track that anonymous consumer when they hit the website. So we can now match the fact that they saw a banner ad and 2 weeks later they went to the website. We don't need to click directly between the two. We can attribute over a week or a longer time period. We see that person in real-time bidding. So we can now track information on real-time bidding activity. So we've gone into one of the sort of ad buying, audience buying systems in media. We can track who they are, a bit more about it. The person then comes back to our website. They sign up for using Facebook sign-in. Everyone here knows never sign into anything using Facebook sign-in because you give access to your social graph. Okay? So while you give your email address, that's great. I've now tied an email address to the cookie. I've got all the historical data about that individual anonymous cookie. I also know that person's name. I know all their friends and what they do on Facebook and the other areas. Okay? Great thing about single sign-on. Helps join everybody together. Okay? Now I've got that data. I'm going to take that email address and I'm going to send it to someone like Experian or Axiom and say, could you do a reverse append on this email, please? And they'll go, no problem. So here's that person's email address, here's their physical address, here's how many kids they've got, here's their income. Again, old-fashioned direct marketing. To that, we then see them on a trading desk because they visit mums.net. So they show up randomly in real time across an ad network, like Channel 4. We can see them on a certain site, we can match them to a unique ID, we now know what sites they're visiting. So we can start understanding their viewing preferences and targeting for future media campaigns. A phone number then enters a text and win. So anonymous phone number we don't know, but in the body of the phone number is the email address we've already got in the system. What do? We join them. We can join all the silos together. So we now know that anonymous cookie, which went on a banner to a website, saw some real-time bidding, registered with Facebook, now we know where they live, and we know their phone number. That phone number calls a call center, changes their name, the system updates, we now know more information, and we also know they just had a baby. Okay? It's a constant evolution of how we integrate the data, with the caveat of being within the privacy regulations of the market we're working in. But we might always stretch those a little bit. I talk at a lot of privacy conferences. I'm the guy who comes in to scare everybody. Okay? But how do we work with it? How do we get closer and closer to that consumer with every interaction? How do we move that data out of silos into a unique single place? Hopefully, most of you have already seen this video. It's a guy called Charles Duhigg, who's a journalist in the States. And he wrote a story about 1.5 years ago about how Target worked out a man's daughter was pregnant before he did. Some of you may have heard the story. I won't say any more, but watch the video.
Did you know that by studying shoppers' habits, companies can predict what you want to buy? And sometimes, that's a problem. A few years ago, for instance, a father walked into a Target store in Minnesota, clutching an advertisement. He started yelling at the manager. "Did you send this to my daughter?" he asked. The ad contained all these coupons for baby clothes and bottles and formula and cribs. "She's still in high school and you're sending her ads for baby clothes?" he screamed at the manager. "Are you trying to encourage her to get pregnant?" The store manager apologized and a few days later called the guy to apologize again. The father was somewhat abashed. "It turns out there's been some activities in my house that I wasn't aware of," he told the manager. "I had a long conversation with my daughter. She's due in August. It turns out I owe you an apology." Target had created a computer model that could figure out which shoppers were pregnant just by studying their shopping habits. Identifying pregnant women is the holy grail of retail. People with new babies are so tired that if you can get them inside your doors to buy bottles and formula, they'll end up buying everything else they need as well. And if a new parent starts shopping at Target, they'll keep coming back for years. So how did Target start marketing to parents before the baby arrived? Lots of people buy lotion, but a Target data analyst noticed that women on Target's baby registry started buying very large quantities of lotion in about their second trimester. Someone else noticed that in about their 20th week, pregnant women started loading up on vitamins. By crawling through the data, Target was able to identify about 25 different items that, when analyzed together, would allow them to predict if someone was pregnant. Target's program was so accurate that it could assign almost any regular shopper a pregnancy prediction score. But the problem with all this data, as the father in Minnesota demonstrated, is that Target couldn't let on how much they knew. After all, shoppers might get a little bit upset if they received an advertisement making it clear that Target was studying their reproductive plans. So how did Target solve this problem? They started mixing in ads for bottles and formula with other products that had nothing to do with pregnancy, like lawnmowers and wine glasses, things that they knew a pregnant woman wouldn't necessarily be interested in. As a result, the baby ads looked random, and it worked. Women started using the coupons, and Target's mom and baby sales exploded. The lesson? Habits matter, and we can either choose to shape our habits ourselves, or we can wait till someone else shapes them for us.
Really important rule though, never use the data insight as the creative. Okay? Let it drive the creative. So what's really interesting again in the video, can't show it here, it'll sort of act it out, is they show about how they take that insight and on the newsletters and the information and coupons they send to the consumers, while building in the baby items, they also put information in for other products that aren't relevant. So they put in information on lawnmowers, wine bottles, and things like that, just to make it look a little bit more dumb, okay, while knowing what the consumers are doing. So, in some of the technology. If you could monitor 500 feeds at the same time, why would we only settle for one? If we could bring all our marketing data into the same place and use it to drive rules and insights and intelligence, why would we continue to have individual feeds and just one bit of information in one place? So what we've been doing for WPP, and we've launched as what we call our core framework, is this idea of a single sort of mega pipe of data. And what it is not all the data in one place, but it's a sort of a wrapper around the outside of the data. And it's a single source. All the information for all marketing and advertising comes through one place, whether it's TV GRPs, outdoor information, whether it's own media activity, social data, retail spend, all in the same environment. We have this concept of data following the decision maker. There are people in the marketing organization who want event data. There are other people who just want a red or a green light, knowing how well something's working or isn't working. How do we make sure that's the same data coming from the same place? More often than not, the information going to the CMO or the VP of marketing is being cut and pasted through 15 spreadsheets, 2 PowerPoints, and is 4 weeks departed from the database it actually came from. How do we join those together and sort of link them up? We also talk about predictive modeling and machine learning. We're using more and more technology these days to actually put in those concepts that we talked about when it came to sort of how banks and telcos are doing real-time alerts, that credit card fraud alert information, where we can actually get real-time information that things are happening and changing. I'm pretty sure everyone would like to know when their competitor's social buzz increases 10%, when their click-through rate and their activities drop by 10%. What are the rules you'd like to know about? And why can't we bring those in? Why can't we adapt those in real time? And finally, integration with client data and bringing in bigger data systems with it. We're talking to a major global hotel chain of bringing in every single room booking, whether it comes from the travel agent in bricks and mortar or from their e-commerce. But we don't just want to know it's a room booking. I want to know, is it on the 5th floor or the 10th floor? Is it close to the lift or far away from the lift? Is it a twin bed or a double bed? What type of soap is in the bathroom? Okay. Talking to a major cruise line about the same sort of thing. What's the spend on the cruise? Who spends more money on alcohol? Okay. We want to know that. How do we track that? How do we go back to marketing? How do we bring that information, that corporate intelligence, together with marketing intelligence to drive the two and drive profit? So in that framework, here's the fluffy version of it, is a really, really simple concept. Gather the data, analyze the data, and act on it. If you can't act on it, there's no point in doing the other two. Okay? There's 3 types of data we look at. Client data. Everyone talks about paid, owned, and earned information coming together. Okay? We talk about cookies coming together at a single point. Bring that data in. We have WPP's data, obviously. Why would we not put our data in if we could do? And we have third-party information. We're bringing in pretty much everything you can imagine from a third-party perspective. So not only have we got people like Acxiom and Experian, the traditional big data providers, but we're also working with Comscore, LinkedIn, Pandora, Amazon, weather.com, foreign exchange data, gold prices, all that type of data is coming into the same place. Bring it all into the same environment, so it's joined up and visible. Okay? We're using some really clever technology to join it up and put it together. The technology is the same system that the New York Stock Exchange run their trades off. Okay? It's never been used in marketing before. It's a major platform used to dealing with trillions of interactions in real time. And what we then have, and you can obviously read this perfectly clear from the back of the room, in Analyze, we talk about how you analyze data as 3 things. Reporting, that's those static reports. Build it once, view it many times. Doesn't change often. Standard spreadsheet, standard interactive dashboard. Analyze. There is a significant evolution in marketing analytics. SaaS analysts are bloody expensive. Another key point, think of marketing analytics. How many people think everyone in marketing joined because they were good at maths at school? Okay? Not many people came to marketing because they were good at maths at school. Okay? It's normally the other way around. So the industry is becoming more and more about maths and understanding numbers. How do we change that? We're not going to basically rip out 7,000 marketers from Unilever and say, we're going to put in people who've got to understand maths. We have to change the way the tools enable those activities. Okay. So we need to look at how those tools provide the ability that someone who isn't a SaaS analyst, who isn't a SQL programmer, can actually analyze and work with big data and those numbers themselves. How do we change that? all the way through to the ability to model, where we do then go to the uber data geeks and do let them play in big data numbers with petaflops of transactional data and other structures in what we do. And finally, there's acting on it. And we break out two views of acting on it. One is the sort of CRM and marketing automation side with companies such as Nearlane and others, through to the trading desk, to the real-time media buying, where I will literally be able to buy a specific banner ad based on the person I've just sent an email to and the fact that they called the call center, and tie them together in real time. And then close the loop and bring all that data back together. Fundamentally, though, when we look at our technology, we look at models like this. We talk about the concept of data-driven journeys. So everyone understands customer journeys. How many people have looked at the customer journey and looked at what data could I capture at every one of those interactions? And how do I then use that data at the next interaction to make it more relevant and personalized? Okay. The best film about direct marketing, CRM, ever made? Any guesses? Okay. Bill Murray, 1983, Groundhog Day. Okay. So what if I could basically effectively, every time I interact with a consumer, I remember, they forget. So I can screw up as much as I want, and they only remember when I get it right. Okay? That's where we want to go to. How do we learn that? How do we change that in the way we do business? So how do we look at the customer journeys based on real marketing, how the general creative agencies think, but then how do we look at the data structures and how we use and drive that, how the data changes. We're even working with a major automotive at the moment in actually downloading all the telemetric data from the vehicle. So we know how fast you drive and where you drive and different routes and structures. We're tying that back into marketing information and adapting that to how we show banner ads on the homepage. Okay? Based on the segment we think you look like and how we think you might drive in 3 years' time. So one of the ways of accessing this data that I was asked to show is this technology. So we've been working with Adobe. We work obviously with a huge number of partners, but Adobe have a system called Adobe Insight. And it's, from my perspective, one of the most advanced sort of BI tools in the world for a non-tech data person. It allows effectively a layman to interrogate many, many petabytes of data in real time. We're even getting to the point where we're looking to deploy this on sort of tablets and iPhones, where we'll be able to actually send alerts to people that will say in real time that we've had an update in your competitor spend data, your banner activities increased, your sales activity have increased. We're talking to a major retailer in the States, literally to the point of, well, is the north side or the south side of the street better to have my shop on? Which you go, is it really valuable? Because how long is it going to take to move your shops across the street? Okay? So we need to look at how we deal with and engage with the data. Anyone can implement these things. The technology is not that complicated. You don't have to spend hundreds of millions on these. There are ways of doing it incredibly cheaply, and there are ways of doing it incredibly expensively. Depends how you want to where you want to be. So the way we work with people is we look at a basic roadmap. We understand that there's a point of arrival. The system I've just shown you, the Adobe one, we also call a North Star. Some people may never get there, but it's a way of thinking that you might want to change and get to your business at some point in time. So where are you? Where do you want to be? What's most important to you? And how do we drive that over a roadmap in a componentized way that is scalable and able to pull things together? People don't have to spend $30 million on massive SAP implementations. There are ways of doing this very quickly. And fundamentally, and I suppose this is my last point, and it's a really, really important one. If anyone takes anything away from my presentation with the screen that didn't work and the screwed up demo, I'm not going to try and fall off at some point. But really, really important point. Whenever you think about data and technology, do not start with the data. You end up being a big consulting company who earns lots of money implementing big data warehouses. The clients go, what the hell do I do with it? You get shiny kit that turns into dusty kit at the end of the year. Start with the user and the business. So really, really simple model. Okay, whenever you're looking at data and technology, what are you trying to achieve as a business? Who has to do it? Who are the people? How familiar are they with technologies or not? How do they get paid their bonus? What are the things that would be useful for them to see every morning as they wake up? Okay, not everyone here wants to see their job as they wake up. Other people do. Okay, what do I want to see? Based on those visuals, what are the equations that need to feed those visuals? What is the data to feed the equations? At this point, I still haven't looked to see whether I have any of that data, whether it exists or where it comes from. I'd now go and look at where it comes from. Where do we have it? What is there? How do we pull it together? What's missing? If you start on this side, you end up with a really nice shiny bit of kit that the CIO is very protective of. No one ever uses it. Start on this side, it's much cheaper, much easier, and massively faster. Start with your moments of truth. Start with measuring what you treasure, okay, versus pulling data and tech together.